the motion was made. Thank you very much. We don't have anything on here as far as pledges or prayers, so we'll just go straight into the budget work session. This has been, just to let y'all know, we have worked hard this year to try to, so we're all on the same page. I'm looking for the one page here that Natasha has, that she gave you. Y'all see this page right here? Yeah, that's it right here.
It's right here, Sunday.
Here's the guy. I did one similar to this, but this one tells you pretty much what we're looking at. And to look at this right here, it goes by each department.
Listen.
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay. And if you'll look, the red is areas that were going down from last year. Okay. If it's in black, we're going up a little bit from last year. So this will give you an idea of where we're at on each department, and we can just go through this real quick. And I'd like for y'all to tell me if you had any reasons to change this. The Commissioner's Court, of course, the County Judge's Office, we're reducing our budget by $7,500. The Commissioner's Court, the big ticket item there is the rural fire contracts. That and the retiree insurance that we included. So that's the big ticket item on that. County clerks, and y'all speak up anytime you want to speak. Anytime y'all have something you want to talk about for clarification, please let me know. County clerk's office, that's 189,000 savings this year. The biggest part of that is the record management. And as y'all remember, what happened is we contracted with a company that's going to do that for us now. And so rather than us budget the amount that we were budgeting each year, not only for salary and to have that done, we got another company doing it for a whole lot less money. If you want to keep going down the list, Veterans Office, that's just a small amount that we were saving. The next one is the non-departmental. That's a big area there that we're not budgeting as much. So we're saving as much as $363,000 out of that one department. The biggest amount of that is the transfer to LCDC and the fact that we won't need to take that much money out of Limestone County juvenile probation this year. So again, LCDC, we're not planning on doing a couple $100,000 work out there this year, in my opinion. Y'all speak up anytime. The district clerk is $200 savings. The JPs, we were putting in there a $3,000 increase in theirs. I know there has been some talk about that, and that's something that we're going to have to decide what we're going to do as far as approving that $3,000. Does anybody have anything they want to say on that?
What's the $3,000? $3,000
To the base salary.
What is the salary now?
I don't have that in front of me, but it's, it seems like the base is right at 41, if I remember right.
It's, the base,
Yeah, don't worry about longevity, but that's
no, the base is actually, is 38,104.
38.
We don't need to go up 3,000 on the JP.
Well, the JPs came and asked to go up, and again, and when they came to my office and visited with me, they did not have an amount of time. I think we originally visited with them, and the total was 5,000 increase, and it started for whatever reason. I think we just threw out a number to try to meet in the middle somewhere.
Well, my thinking, Judge, is I think they need a raise. And I thought 5,000 was too much because that put them making basically the same base pay as the county clerk, district clerk. so forth. And those people supervise more people and are responsible for the whole county, district clerk, tax collector, county clerk, responsible for countywide. And I had actually met with Mike and explained this to him. But I think they ought to make more than the constables. So that 3,000, to me, got them in between the elected officials that are responsible countywide and supervise 4, 6, 3, 5 employees as opposed to one, and only responsible for one precinct. So that kind of left a gap where these elected officials are here, be it the clerks, tax collector, the JPs were here, and then the constables were here. That's just what I felt like what was fair. And so that's the reason I think 3,000 is a fair amount to kind of put them in that area. And that's what I should.
I always looked at it, though, if we can't get raises to everybody, I don't see how to get raises for people.
All right, so, you got any thoughts?
No, I kind of feel like here, everybody's gonna be on the raise, we're gonna do everybody raise, we're gonna have to. That means just,
Let's go ahead then, and if y'all don't mind, put us hard by this one. And they can actually make a decision on it, I guess we can do it by an actual vote, we're not gonna do that today, this is just.
Sometimes, and I understand the concept Jerry said very much, if you don't give it to one, if you don't give everybody a raise. But there's times when salaries are a little bit out of line. We're probably going to address that with the lower end sheriff's department. We're probably going to address that with the lower end road and bridge.
Yeah, that's right, so.
And sometimes the individual's out of line. We addressed it last year at the top level. We're probably going to maybe address it with the sheriff this year. And I just think maybe the JPs are, you got to remember, they're an elected official responsible for a department. They're a supervisor. And I just think maybe that salary is a little low.
Well, and let me just say, to kind of concur with what Bobby said, we're giving a lot of people raises this year, although we're not giving a countywide raise.
Trying to get in line with what it should be.
So we're giving the road and bridge guys, we're gonna get them up, the dispatch, we're getting a little bump of hope. We're giving the sergeant and below with the sheriff's department a raise. There's lots of folks that are gonna get raises. But anyway, another thing that we have to remember though is that, we're trying to make this thing, balanced. So, let's put let's just put a hashtag on this one right here, and maybe we can visit more about it at another time. Unless y'all want to actually take a vote on it today, this is what you want to do.
I think this is just a workshop.
Then I'll be happy to entertain a motion. We're in an actual open meeting. Although it doesn't say action, I don't mind y'all doing it. I would rather wait for the first one.
Yeah,
I just work with them anyway, we're gonna talk about it.
go over the other.
All right, let's go down to
We just got this.
let's go down to the county attorney, and the county attorney has found over $9,000 that he's going to reduce his budget by. So that was good. The auditor's office was very minimal. The tax assessor collector is very minimal. Let's keep rolling here and go under facility management. As you can see, we found ways to cut several. One of the utilities had to have a little bit of an increase, but by and large, we found quite a few areas that I thought we could cut down a little bit. The constables, I tried to make them all uniform as far as what they're getting paid right now, as far as their uniform allowance, their office supplies. We tried to make that as pretty uniform in that. Next item is to visit about, and again, if y'all have any areas that you want to speak of and talk about, please feel free to do it.
Judge, on, and you probably can explain it to me easy, conference schools and dues, Constable Precinct 1 is cut $200, and 4 is cut $200, and 2 and 3 are still the same.
They were different.
Okay,
They were different when we went into it, and so I got to looking at what they'd spent through the years, and by making them all about the same, because they all go to the same schools.
Yeah.
Pretty much, the same conferences, I just thought we'd just make it all.
Well, and I don't know this, you know, I'm just talking, the conference schools and dues for precinct 4. If he was here, or maybe the sheriff knows, probably done, he may be required to take some additional stuff because he's a new elected official. I don't know that.
And another thing,
I don't know what his requirements are.
that may be true, but also remember, and one thing I'm encouraging them to use is where you have to help me on this, is it Leos?
Yes, sir.
They get funded for the state,
Okay, okay.
and they use our money.
Now, I'm okay with
Use that money second. I'm asking that they use the state money first, and then use our money second. What I'm asking, they don't do that. Even the sheriff's department, y'all have, monies that y'all get each year, right, Sheriff? Or, Murray, sorry, I jumped the gun there. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that, that's an area that they could use their monies first, in my opinion, and we could fall back. But even saying that, there's not gonna be that many schools this next year, if we keep going for.
No, you're right with that.
So that's another reason we look at it real hard. Anything else?
Judge, on the sheriff, when you get to it, I just noticed an error that I made. I did not include the amount for the deputies increase. And that's gonna be 33,194, which will make the total, instead of 14,300, it'll make it 47,494 for that department.
Okay, 47, what?
494.
Okay, which will reduce that 350 by, it'll reduce that 350 by 33,000. So,
What was the amount that went in there? Yeah, not the total, but the amount.
33,194,
And that's the increase for the deputies.
yes.
yes. And let's go ahead and talk about the sheriff's department real quick. One of the things that we've always had, I say always, since I've been around, is we have a tough time keeping our deputies. And we think that one of the main reasons that we have a tough time keeping them is we're having a hard time competing with other entities, and now even more with less and less people going to the academies. I think probably some of the bigger cities are gonna start reducing some of the requirements that they have to bring officers with them. So I thought if we could get up as close as we could to that $20 an hour range, we could keep our deputies here. I think we're only at 19 something right now with this raise, but it's still a lot better than where we've been in the past. And so that was one of the increases that I went ahead and funded this year, to try to give all the sergeants and below a little bit of an increase. And it's something that the sheriff in Murray brought to me that they were requesting. I mean, they didn't get all the requests, but at least from sergeant and below, we tried to honor that request. Well, it was like $1.
33,000 across the board for the whole
And some
year.
of them was $9,
It was $1.14
$14.
across the board for all of them.
And that's very valuable. We got men, I hate to refer to Mike again, but, you know, when you get an old head that's around here for a long time, that's working for the sheriff's department or the APD or whatever, you like to hang on to them because you don't want to lose them. As soon as they find out where Glendale Street is in Mahia, you don't want to lose them. Somebody else goes, Glendale in Mahia, or Thornton, or where is it? I mean, you
It's a
know,
lot of training time.
a lot of training time.
Money.
Well, and you got to get to know the characters. I mean, you know, you see a burglary and you say, well, I know John did this, you know.
Well, like what, as you said, we're losing officers to other locations.
Yeah, and we need to stop.
Because of the rise of competition. As it is now, most small counties are basically training grounds for your larger counties because once you get a deputy to a certain point, they can go elsewhere and make a good bit more money. So,
Well, and that's something I've said all along, and I learned this in my days with the Mahia City Council, is that a lot of the bigger departments require you to have a couple of years of experience before they'll hire you on. And so where they get that experience, they go to Back, Mahia, Limestone County, and they get those 2 years and then move along. We're wanting to get the money up where they'll actually grow some roots here in Limestone County and maybe like it and not move on. And so that's a fight we always have, but at least we can say we're trying as hard as we can to get our deputies a fair pay for what they do. So any other, one of the other items on that is, and this is something that we looked at pretty hard, and that's the fact that the salary for our sheriff is relatively low for the base salary alone, just the base salary. Our sheriff actually does quite a bit better financially than a lot of sheriffs of 25,000 and below departments. But the reason being is he gets the additional monies from the detention center. But if that detention center was not here, we would have one of the lowest paid sheriffs of any department, 25,000 populated and below. And so the recommendation was that we give the sheriff's department, the sheriff himself, a raise this year. And so that's something that's being considered, something that's being presented to you. And that's a $5,000 raise for our sheriff. Any other comments on the sheriff's, the law enforcement side of it? Okay, let's go to the jail side. The jail side is one of the areas that I think that we have a lot of trouble with, to be honest with you. The reason we have so much trouble is that I don't know if we don't pay them enough. I don't know what it is, but we're constantly don't have the people out there. And we're just almost have thousands of dollars that we're having to put over into our comp time liability line, to be frank with you. And so I talked with Murray and the sheriff about it. And you know, we did this, my first year here, is we came up with one other person to kind of do transports, to fill in, especially to help us out. And I'm asking that we put one new jail position down. Another thing that happens is we have an employee out there that, for medical reasons, cannot fill a full shift. And Murray, help me on this. Does that one person only work, do they work 5 days?
Yes.
And so they're actually there a couple of days when they have another shift of sergeants in there. But on the days when they're there with just, where she's actually a sergeant position on those days, they're running short immediately just because of her, right? So I can't tell the sheriff's department what to do. I would like to see us get a regular full-time person in that position for that shift. And this other position be someone that can fill in, can do the transports, do them timely. We can, that will free up our number 2 person who's been making transports all the time. That can free them up. I just, in my mind, and I'm not a jailer, I'm hoping, the goal is to stop the overtime and the comp time. And Murray, do you feel comfortable that would help?
It will help. You're not gonna knock it completely out of the
I
way.
understand.
There's no way to say that. But it would help. Anything you can do to add there. What happens is your shifts, you only have 2 or 3 extra on the shift, which helps fill in and give breaks and relief factors and all that. But then what happens is if you have somebody out sick or somebody on vacation, and then like here lately, we've had one pregnant female at the hospital for 3 weeks. That's officers every day going to sit with them at the hospital, so that's one that's not in there. So you're already short as you're coming in, and you've got to cover it some way. You've got to call somebody in to cover it. So if we had the extra people, that would help be able to plug that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that during the day, there's more than that, more than just cover. But that's because you do have your lieutenant and then your captain out there that could kind of fill in. I think the captain's been out for a while, though, on some kind of medical. But anyway, if we were full, this would certainly alleviate some of that money that we're having to budget. And I hope you all will consider doing that. Any other questions about the jail? Next item is the dispatch. I'm asking for one new position at the dispatch. And they also trying to get that pay up. The dispatch, once I got involved in the dispatch, found out that's one of the most important jobs in Knoxville County. And I didn't realize just how important that job was. You're sitting in a room for 10 hours a day and hearing nothing but negatives coming in all the time. It takes a certain kind of person to do that. And so, we're working hard to get our communication center to be one of the best communication centers, in Central Texas. And we have people calling us already saying, let us know what you're doing because we're interested. We're thinking about, we're gonna have to do the same thing that y'all done. And so, that's one of the reasons I'm asking that we do some increase in air dispatch. Any other questions there? Highway patrol is not much happening there. The indigent health, not much there. Emergency management, a little bit more there, but not much. Court coordinator, not a lot. So as you can see, we've been able to reduce, even with these changes, we've been able to reduce about $321,000 out of the general fund. Let's start looking next, if y'all don't mind, at Road and Bridge. And at Road and Bridge, there were some, I've got the list if y'all want to look at it, of the people that were trying to get to at least $14 an hour. In today's world, we just don't think that you can, we can maintain people for much less than $14 an hour. And I know that sounds, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you're thinking, man, if I can pay someone $10 an hour, they're making good money. Well, those days are long gone. So at Road and Bridge, the biggest item there, I think that y'all would be interested in, is I was asking, and we don't have Jerry here today, but I was asking that we reduce the contingency by $100,000. And the reason I recommend that to y'all, this is something I'm all ears, is the fact that I asked Jerry Aaron, do we have the personnel and the equipment to do the 1.1 million that we have budgeted in our road bridge fund for that, plus another 300 for 1.4 million? He said, without hesitation, no, I cannot do it. He said, I can, but it makes it hard. He said it makes it awful hard on us to be able to do
It
that.
gets bad weather, just like last year, you can't do it.
So that's why I'm asking that we reduce that one contingency by about $100,000 out of the road and bridge. And then we can take a hard look at it for next year. We got more monies coming in next year. But still, that's just one of the areas that I'm recommending to you, that we reduce the road and bridge that 100,000. Past that, there's not a lot more there that we could visit about.
On the road, the vehicles, what does that consist of?
The road,
Just pickups and.
yes. And the reason I put that in there is because I think he's trying to buy 2 this year. I don't know if he'll get it done.
I mean, he just made a comment to us, but we haven't heard anything more.
I know he said he would like to get, he'd like to get a new vehicle.
Let's take $35,000 out.
Right. That's not happening for next year.
What was the total before we took the 30? I mean, these are just
35.
changes.
35 is what it
35,
was.
that's all that was budgeted for this year was 35.
Where's our equipment budget?
Well, that didn't get
Well, it's-
changed.
you get it affected. Yeah, these are just the changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't.
So these are just
He
changes.
hasn't.
So they still have equipment in.
Yes, oh yeah.
Just,
It's
regular.
$400,000.
Which is like a sheriff's office.
Right. These are just changes, whether good or bad.
So
So,
these are just changes.
yes, these are changes based on last year's budget.
Well, under that, you know, if you're storing things, we hadn't really discussed it, you and I talked about it a little bit, but I like to store that contingency deal.
Okay.
If it doesn't skew the budget, because you never know when you're gonna have something that it didn't amount to whatever Jerry said, $15,000, but we could have had a catastrophe that was a lot more than that. Of course, I feel like we could always do budget transfers and stuff if we had something like that. But, we don't necessarily have to, I guess, move all that. I think, I discussed with Jerry too, as you did, and he says it is tough, and I'm sure Jerry Allen spoke to him too, to spend all that money, but right now, where we're running probably into our 30th day or so, they're spending it quick now. They just got a lot of sand in, which was a expense off of that, and they're whittling everybody's amount down pretty fast. But it still may be 100,000 left in there. But we might know more, you know, when we get around to adopting the budget, we might know more a little bit.
Okay.
About
That'd be 200,000 left in there, Bobby. You know, you could take 100,000 out for y'all to spend, $100,000 for Jerry to have.
Yeah, a whole lot of take it out of the contingency and not have the actual material side. If we take it out.
All right, let's go ahead and put that on the,
Yeah, kind of discuss.
to discuss. All right. Airport wasn't much there, getting down to the, Tourism District Court Fund, try to make sure that we were, with all the COVID things, that we were being prudent there. I don't think that's gonna be a big topic. Law library, I'm gonna try to work on changing that around. We've got two companies that we use. One of them is our books, and we may get to where we just do away with the books, to be frank. All the attorneys like to use the online, so I think one of the district judges alone likes the books, but we may have to make a decision eventually on that, but right now I haven't done that. I haven't asked y'all to do that. Let's see here. Capital Projects Outlay Fund. This is one area that if we didn't have this in there, we would be sitting here jumping up and down, and it'd be back in the old days when the LCDC would come forth and ask for gold-plated urinals when they get all they wanted. As y'all remember, 2 years ago, we got a grant for $600,000 to refurbish the courthouse. Of that grant, we were originally gonna have to come up with 25%. However, they came back and even reduced that. So the total amount of money that we're gonna eventually, one day, be held to is $125,000, I think it is. Or 25% is the 125 is what.
It's around 125, 128,000.
Anyway, the point is, but because we're gonna be spending that money this next year, we have to put 485,000, is that what it was, 483,000 into that. Gee, that really goes up to that refurbished courthouse, not communication project.
Yeah, it's
That
going-
actually needs to go up line.
It's going up to the 500, we're increasing the courthouse grant line, refurbished courthouse,
Yes,
by 518,000. We're putting 518,000 back in.
yes.
And then we're gonna decrease the communication because from what last year's budget was by 35,000, which is lowering it. So the difference in the whole budget for that fund is the 483,000. But speaking with Sam, they're moving on this and they're fixing to start doing the work here pretty soon, starting on the courthouse.
And like I told, Bob here, and I know it's Natasha, I wish we could take that money, once we budget it, once the taxpayers, we set the tax rate for that year. And although we didn't use it, we put it back in the fund balance. I wish we could just set that over on a shelf somewhere and don't let it muddy our water. And as we need it, we can pull out of it. But nonetheless, this is 483,000 that we're having to budget this year, that we're having to set the tax rate on this year, comes from monies that we're gonna get back. Anyway, let's keep going, unless y'all have questions about that. Okay, the jail and detention facility, we've reduced that for the furniture and equipment project work. There's no reason to think we're gonna be spending that kind of money out there this year. So, when you look at the 483,000 that we put in there, that we have to put in there, the total changes for the Commissioners Court to consider is gonna be 100, I'm sure I did this right, 140,000 minus the 30, right?
Correct.
So about 110,000 is what our expenses, with all the changes that we're recommending, all the changes in here, we're gonna be about $110,000 less of expenses than we were last year, not to mention that we're gonna be increasing our revenue by the whatever amount we decide to go with. Natasha has done the rate calculation based on, and you gotta remember which direction we're going. Are we going up from the new rate / effective tax rate, or are we going down from the rate that we had last year? And that's what I'm asking. You did it based on what?
I did it based on the numbers that Stacy gave y'all, showing what what they call now the no new revenue, and then the 1 cent. I did everything based on what y'all voted on and quarter discussed in last meeting to use the 1 cent.
One penny.
Yes.
And that's 1 cent above,
Above the,
below.
it's gonna be below,
We were
it's gonna
78
be, yeah, we're 78.92,
and
so it's
and 75.
Yeah, but that's more than 1 cent.
76.
Well, 75.78 would be bringing in Zach's amount of money.
Yes.
And 76.78 would still be about 2 cents less than we did last year.
So,
But we bring in a little bit more money.
yes, and that's what I'm.
$195,000.
And y'all see where I'm at?
Yeah.
Are we figuring on going up from the effective tax rate or coming down from our last rate? Either way, it's gonna be a reduction in tax rate than what we did last year. That's right. And we've got the budget set up, ready to go with these expenses, with that revenue, at least reducing the tax rate some. It's what are you proposing the tax rate to be? On what you figured out, 7.6 something, wasn't it?
76,
78 is what, I use that based on what y'all had discussed. Now,
So we're basically going a little bit over a 1 cent reduction in our tax rate.
almost 2.
Yeah, almost 2 cents, yeah.
78, something.
That's right, nearly 2, actually, it's more than 2. We were 78,
92.
90 something.
We're just over 2
A
cents.
little over 2
Yes,
cents.
78.92 is what the current rate is right now.
So we're gonna, that's awful attractive that we can do this and balance this budget and give the taxpayers a 2 cent cut in their taxes. I'm excited about that. So I think we've really only got a couple. Now, one of the areas that we need to talk about that we haven't talked about that was not in this is the subject that we have not discussed yet, so that we need to discuss it. Is that in the sheriff's budget, he's requesting more vehicles. And we did not have vehicles listed. Last year, as y'all remember, I asked that the monies that were being made each month from LCDC go into a separate kind of, not separate fund, but that's money we could use to just, as we got enough money each month, and we were making 30 to 40,000 a month, then every other month we could buy a vehicle as needed or whatever, and we bought 2 last year that way. I need to know what y'all's thoughts are about adding to this for vehicles.
Mary, have you, checked on, see what vehicles are probably gonna run?
When the new models come out, the new contracts will be announced closer to the end of September. The sooner you can get in, the sooner you're able to get vehicles and come up with them. Don't have an exact price right now.
I mean,
I can give you an idea when they're ready.
Right now, the Tahoes for this year, the Tahoes we purchased were right around $31,000. And then it's almost $10,000 worth of equipment, that being cameras, cages, lights, all that kind of stuff, graphics and all that.
45,000.
41 to 42,000 is what they were this year. I don't know how much the price will change next year, and that was fully rigged out, that was ready to go. So, but right now, our fleet, we have, and I believe I put it in those packets, the majority of our fleet is well over 200,000 miles, and we have patrol cars out there with almost 300,000. I mean, you get to that point, the maintenance and the safety for the officers, as well as you. If you call and have somebody come, if it's a 300,000 mile vehicle coming to you, there's a chance it might not make it.
Let me ask you, Murray, 2 years ago, I mean, how long I've been here? I've been here just a little over 2 years.
Correct.
We didn't get those vehicles until I got here. I know y'all bought them past that, but y'all got 8 vehicles 2 years ago.
2.5, yes, sir. Lower.
I got here in June, July, okay. Doesn't matter. Y'all got 8 Tahoes right then, of which one of them is focal out.
Correct.
So that left 7. And then you got 2 new ones last year. So there's 9 vehicles that are basically around a couple years old.
Correct.
Of those 9 vehicles, what's the mileage on those?
2 of them are still at the outfitters, those latest 2 that we got. The one that was a replacement for the one that got totaled, then the one that Fort bought before.
So
They're at outfitters, so
They don't have
they're correct.
How many does
Out of
the
the
seven?
55 to 65,000 miles.
Okay, so basically, 9 vehicles are in pretty good shape.
Correct.
We only have, how many actual deputies that go out on the road each, in your department, in the law enforcement department?
Honestly, investigators, you got right around 19, 20 county courthouse.
Well, no, I'm talking about how many law enforcement people do you have on a shift that go out all through the county?
3 or 4, or 2.
You got about 11, I think, right? Maybe 12?
Yes, sir.
So if we made sure that those guys, no matter what, had decent miles, you know, really, I don't think you can count the guy, the courthouse guy here. He doesn't need, I say that, he might have something was to break out and he had to take off, but by and large, he doesn't need, he could do okay with that. The deputies don't, the detectives don't use, these kind of vehicles. They've got just regular vehicles that they're using. Correct. And so, so past that, if we had, and then I know the sheriff's got a vehicle that's somewhat, got a few miles on it, but I mean, still good. But it's still in good shape, I think. And then, I don't know what you drive, I don't know what the rest of the vehicles have, but,
Almost all the CID vehicles are 2009s or older.
Okay.
The patrol lieutenant is a 2008 or 2009, or patrol sergeant, captain, the 2008, 2009 model. I mean, that's where almost all of our vehicles are, other than the new ones we got a couple of years ago.
Murray, is there any other vehicles besides Tahoe? That's right.
We've looked at other vehicles. The Tahoes hold up really, really well. Last year, and I took the estimates.
One, you know, lifters or something like that.
But I took the estimates to the judge, sir.
And they wouldn't do nothing about it because.
Correct. That's one out of, I mean, look how many Tahoes are out there, you know, running the roads. I mean, that.
I just don't think we had other options.
We do. We looked, last year we looked at pickups. And I think the estimates when we got to the judge, pickups were less than $1,000 difference in the price.
yeah, well, it was about $1,500 difference.
So, but other than that, your maintenance costs will go up drastically, on some of your other vehicles. You know as well as I do, some of your roads, some of the places the patrol cars go, some of the driveways, some of the other things.
What do you base
If the car sets 4 or 5 inches off the ground, I mean, we in the Dodge Chargers, we hit a raccoon one time and it did $1,500 worth of damage because it took the oil coolers out, the radiator out, takes everything out. They sit so low to the ground, there's no.
Well, I think some of them were out working on those Tahoes up there.
Yes, sir. You've got 300,000 miles on it.
In the
And they're
package,
driving in an aggressive manner, you're gonna have maintenance issues. There's not a doubt about that.
in the package you ran by us all, you asked for 5.
Correct.
Being strong law enforcement, I think 5's too many. But I do think with the number of vehicles that we've got over 200,000 miles, I'd love to see us repurpose. I'd love to see us buy 3 and repurpose 3.
Yeah.
Or maybe even repurpose 4 and shorten one car. I mean, they've got a car sitting down there.
One little girl gotta have a car, but she keeps the open dash at the top. Out over there.
But we need to keep our fleet up, and we're at a time frame that we can do that financially. And I think we need to put money in assets, such as we. But I don't think we need to do 5. I think 3 would be certainly.
I go with 2, we look at doing 3.
I mean, I'll say,
Yeah, what would if we done 3, what would that do to us?
Well, that brings us even, right, on expenses for,
Yeah, without that penny,
with it,
without that penny. You still got the $195,000
Yes.
we'll get from the penny.
yes.
and the tax.
You agree with that, Tony? I do, yeah.
So that'd break us even and we'd still be 195,000 we hadn't allocated yet. And that's giving the JPs a 3,000 raise. They just taking 100,000 out of our brick.
Yes.
But that gives everybody their raises?
Yep.
Not everybody, I take that back. That gives the ones we definitely.
All the bumps.
Yeah, the college bumps. And, that basically washes the other. Was Jerry Herring, and I didn't ask this question a while ago, that 35,000 coming out for vehicles, is that something that you thought we could do without this year, or is that something we did, or that's something?
Well, no, that's something Jerry did.
Okay, okay.
Now, what he wanted to do was, he wanted to take 35,000 to get a new truck, and then he wanted another 35,000 thereabouts to get Tran a truck. And then his truck that was bought last year or the year before, would go down to the yard.
But if he's gonna do that this year, he needs to, and he has to take possession before September 30th.
Which that's easy to do though, on that kind of vehicle, it's not with his.
Yeah, with his vehicle, it's harder to
He, he could go buy a new truck next week. Basically. But,
Has he got the money in this year's budget to?
He has the 35,000, and then I think he was planning, I don't know what line, but I know he was thinking of moving money from another line to be able to get the second vehicle.
This year on this budget?
In this budget, in this budget.
and then the reason I put, to take out 35,000 next year, because that would have been 2 years in a row, we got 3 new vehicles, and I was thinking,
I think that's right.
why better that?
Yeah, we go ahead and get the two now.
We can always do a budget transfer out precinct, 3, road materials over to.
You mean just add road materials?
Yeah.
Not precinct, three,
I
just add road materials?
Move 3 things forward.
I say, but anyway,
All right, Commissioner Sam.
yeah.
Bring it up, always, take it down here.
I'd love to see us do 3. There's been some talk, and not really publicly, but it's been some talk about the amount that we pay monthly in travel for the constables. That maybe we come back and take some of these older sheriff's cars, instead of going out and getting 30 cents on the dollar or 50 on auction selling it, that we might furnish those cars to the constables and cut that expense out. I mean, that's just been kind of thrown out there, but it's certainly something to look at.
Start furnishing them so much gas a month out of the sheriff's office out there. You know, I'm put paying them for $350.
So there's some options there too, that are advantage if they get.
What do you think about that?
Well, and let me ask you this, if we got 3 new ones,
But you have 4 commissioners, or 4 constables,
that's what I'm fixing to ask.
so.
If we got 3 new ones, is there a lame vehicle, of course, you're gonna replace 3. Is there a lame vehicle down there that's functionable, but it's got 260 on it or whatever, and it stays parked a lot, that you could sacrifice on your fleet, one less car in your total of whatever it is?
Right now, I'm not aware of any March units that are like that.
Yeah.
The only one that's extra, not extra, is the old Dodge pickup. That used to be on.
Actually, yours.
Is mine. That Mike does.
Well, but let's be clear, right now, let's be clear about something. If you get 3 new vehicles,
You have 3 coming out.
you got 3 coming out, so.
Yeah, so we're looking for 1. If we did the 4 constables.
And if you do this for constables, we might want to look at making, see if Shoemaker wants to sell his, because he's got his dolled up pretty nice, and I need to see us, and then we also need to look at, we're paying the liability on that vehicle, which we don't pay the liability on anyone else's, so we want to make sure that we.
So maybe we only need 3.
May only need 3. What? 4. If Shoemaker kept his.
I'm talking about the constables.
I know, I'm just trying to get, we need at least 4. If we can get 4, that would get us out of a bind, would help out tremendously. Any help would be,
Let me say
it's
this
gonna
to
be
you.
greatly appreciated.
Let me say this to you, Murray. if we can do whatever we can this year,
That's what I said, anything would be greatly appreciated.
I promise you next year, we're gonna have a little bit more money
Okay.
that we can,
Like I said, anything would be greatly appreciated, because we've got to have some stuff.
Ford puts us in a negative based on these.
Well, another thing, if you got money coming from the LCDC, on down the road, you might be able to buy them.
We don't, there is no money.
Well, we have $15,000 a month.
Yeah, but you ain't got the bills yet for all this stuff.
Yeah,
Door,
I know,
lighting,
I'm not saying that. I'm
If we did accrue it.
If we approve something, I'm all for that.
That's what I'm saying. It's 3,000, maybe 6, 8 months, now you might get another one.
I say, could you go along with three? If you watch this on what we,
I go with three.
I know you want four, but I like the fact we're not doing two.
No, I appreciate anything we can get, and three will help out tremendously. I mean, that's.
I like the judge's reference to the fact that we got 7. Then we had 2 more that fixed to come out, so all of a sudden you're gonna have 5 that are brand new.
So you have 12 vehicles then, if you did that, you'd have 12 with under 60,000 thereabouts. And
Which would,
that would take care of every deputy that's going out and going the roads. Some of y'all that aren't going out doing the roads every day, and I know you are, but by and large you're not, the detectives aren't, and, y'all can do something, if something was to happen, y'all can survive, but to have these deputies going all over the county, that's.
the miles investigators drive are different than the miles the patrol guys drive. My truck's 2009 model, and I have like 165,000. So it's not like some of the patrol vehicles that are 2012s with, 250, 275.
They're moving every day.
Yeah, and when we get the mileage, when we get the mileage every month, the detectives aren't, you take out the miles they're going back and forth to home, they're not putting any miles on the trip, I'll just tell you that. And we might even think about doing away with the detectives' vehicles and have 1 or 2 vehicles, sitting there at the law enforcement center that they all get to trade out. That's another thought.
Can
I know it's not a popular thought.
Can I say something on that?
No, they live in those homes.
You're increasing your response time drastically, because if your detective gets called out, then he has to come to the office and get a vehicle, because all of his equipment is in that vehicle that he needs to do his follow-up work, which is gonna have his response time from Mahia to North 14 at the county line, is 5 minutes, his response time from Mahia to North 14 at the county line is an hour, because he has to come down here and get a vehicle and then turn around and go back.
Yeah, that's really all
He
we're
may not be
gonna
at
take.
home where that truck is also, Mike. He may not be at home where that truck is. He may have to drive home to get that truck, to where he could not be closer, so you can look at it both ways.
If he knows it's on call, he needs to be around, which is
Well, if he's on call, he takes that one truck home. Are they all on call every night?
basically, yes.
If something happens, then yes.
And we talk about if
investigators
something
know that
happens.
quite a bit.
And Murray, I'm gonna argue a little bit with you about if something happens, because I've heard that the whole time I've been here. We've got to really over budget in case something happens. We had something happen in Mahia up there on 1365, and you know who got called out? Nobody. The sheriff finally showed up. That's the only one. None of all the extra ones showed up, so let's.
That's it. There were some there were some that lived in Teague were there.
Okay. Anyway, well, let's look and see what it does to the budget to go with 3.
Yeah, I think we can do 3.
Anybody have an objection? And we may wind up with only 2. We're gonna go with the money.
3 figured on that 45,000,
42.
42.
I'd say 45.
I don't know what the new
Another
vehicle's
thing
coming
is-
out, how much the price is gonna change.
Another thing is,
42,
but another thing is, I think the company that we used is charging, because remember, we did 10,000, they added another, we had to go back and get some more money. Or, excuse me, so the year before that, with the 8 that we bought, it was less than what we spent on the 2 of these you got. And I think you agree you're gonna find someone else to look for.
We're gonna look at other people, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is just a budget workshop, and we've nothing set today. Okay. Anything else that y'all want to talk about today as far as the budget? Have I lost
Okay.
one? I think y'all are doing a wonderful job on getting this stuff together. And, you know, one thing I have found is that when you have to do a budget, you're making nobody happy. I'll tell you that right now.
Everybody has what it says.
Somebody, and not only
They
that,
have to give you a different raise, then you will have one down the side, you give them a raise.
not only that, you find out that each department has a more valuable goal than another department.
I'd like to ask one
It's
question.
hard, it's hard.
We read a lot of stuff by Murray. If we elected tonight, and Sherry's left, or I would ask her, what is y'all's feeling? I mean, I know you always disappointed, just like the judge just said, nobody's ever happy. But you asked for 5. Is everybody gonna be somewhat happy if we do 3?
I think so.
Is that something that, I mean,
Yeah,
we've heard a lot of
Actually,
negativity.
we didn't ask for 5, the judge brought the 5 out.
No, actually, Sherry brought it back up.
But-
Because I said, was, yeah, I threw out a number, I said, I have no idea what y'all talking about, 5, whatever.
That's what
And
I
then Sherry called me back and said 5.
Irregardless, what I'm trying to head on
Then what they gonna get paid?
is somebody coming in here or going out on the street and laminating about, about that. We need to have some unity here, that that's something we can do.
I think that 3 is, if you go with 3, is a good starting point.
Okay.
You know, can I say that next year, 5 years down the line, we're not gonna come back?
Every year's a new year.
You know, we're doing, hey, look, you know, this, because as of next month, our jurisdictional limits change. We're done with it. Our jurisdictional limits are going from 10,000 to 20,000, which is gonna happen, which once all of the coronavirus and everything gets through, is gonna increase our caseloads drastically, because cases they're having to file a higher court, they can then be able to file in JP court. And they're
So they don't have to go to county court, they can go to JP court.
right.
So then we can cut Richard's salary by 20 and pass that out. That okay?
That's fine.
No, but on a serious note, I guess what I'm saying is, we need some unity, and we don't need a couple of JPs going out and
Well, here's what I understand you
being
saying.
negative.
What I understand you saying is, if you don't get to 5, are you gonna be unhappy with 3? If you're gonna be unhappy with 3, you'd be just as unhappy with 0. Right?
That's said pretty well. Said pretty well.
Well, I mean, I-
Well, we've heard some negative talk.
you know,
That doesn't help anything.
I've said this before. I'm a new kid on the block.
Well, in that particular job.
And I've been here 5 years as JP. I'm in my 6th year now. The others are all in their 21st year.
Yeah.
You know, so, I went in knowing what the salary range was gonna be, I researched it. And, I worked for the county, I worked for the city head before that, and I know that, governmental pay rates are totally different and based differently than business pay rates.
You're kind of like Jim Boyd. You go to the mailbox first every month and you get about 5 checks.
I'm not like Jim Boyd.
Yeah, Jim Boyd at least 5 checks. But
Well, let me say something else. There was some talk about, do we have to give all the JPs the same amount? We have to give, for instance, one of the commissioners, I guess I'll put it that way, said, what if you just don't give one of them, the one that you're having the grief out of, the one that's not supporting the commissioner's board, just don't give them one at all.
I can't. I think they're all, I think we gotta take personality out of it and raise by position.
Well, that one is hard to take a person out of that one.
Well, I think I'm trying to cut that off.
Anything else y'all want to talk about today? I think we covered a lot of ground today, and I want to just say that I appreciate y'all doing what y'all done on the budget, working hard on it.
Well, I want to say, thank you, Richard, because I know that Richard and Natasha and them have worked hard on looking up figures and figuring figures and calling other counties about what they pay, JPs or sheriffs or whatever else. And there's a lot of work that goes into that I hate to say Sonny and Jerry and I don't do. We may have to vote on it, but we try to research it, but the judges, one, that stuff put together is Natasha and the judges. Well, probably a lot of her, but we appreciate that too. Okay, let's go.
Just to clarify before you adjourn, the only change right now that you want me to mess with is by adding for the vehicles.
And then,
Well, that changed for 33,000 that you called on.
Well, I have it in the big budget, it just didn't make my little spreadsheet, but I do have it in here.
Bill David, you see what you got to look forward to?
Yes. I scared him the other day, he was gonna try to make the meeting, and I said, would you mind singing Stars Make a Banner for us? And he thought that was serious, so he didn't show up. All right, let's go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Don't move.
A motion to second, any other discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
I stabbed myself. I tried to click this on the wrong one. It hurts.